Hi, my name is David Miner. I work in the dairy sector. I lead a company called Performeter where we do consulting and advisory for dairy production investments. Now, what we're going to talk about today is starting a dairy farm. And to be able to talk about this, we look at the question to start or not to start. Should you start that dairy farm which you've always dreamt about, or should you not, due to certain factors? And to be able to discuss this, we shall look at two sections. First, the factors of you, the person, the owner factors. What matters about the person starting the dairy farm to determine whether he starts or he doesn't, or she starts or she doesn't. And then two, the economic factors. You could be suitable to start a farm, but do the economic factors allow you to start that farm in the place that you want to start? That's what we shall be looking at. So when we think about the master plan, it comes to mind as a first step before you start a dairy farm. But I'd like to take you a few steps before that, so that we know whether we go to the master plan or we pause a bit and decide whether we want to go into it. First of all is the owner factors. Who is that person who is starting the dairy farm? What kind of a person is he or she? Are you the kind of a person who can run a business? Are you patient to see a business starting and going through a couple of months, a couple of years before it gives you money? Are you the kind of a person who is excited about failing as long as there are prospects of succeeding in the near future? Are you patient to see a calf grow, take 2 years before they give you milk? Are you the person who encounters a loss and you nearly fall sick because you're depressed about that loss? Are you the kind of a person who can manage people of different levels who are different from you, people who didn't go to much schooling as yourself, people who have different personalities and temperaments? Can you be able to manage them? Are you that kind of a person who is able to look at the process before the money and can be able to endure through the hardships of that process? So it's very important to assess yourself. At what stage of life are you? Are you in that stage where you have so many things to do that if you started this farm, you're only available perhaps once a month, or you're actually physically totally removed from the farm? You are unable to pay attention to that farm as the owner or as a director. How about your family? Are you married, or you have a partner who is interested or not interested in the venture you're about to get into? How are all those factors favoring your startup? That is very important. It can determine whether you succeed or you fail. So before you go to ask a consultant, help me develop a master plan, that's a very important part for you to assess yourself. And I would call it a self-profiling of your ability to run a business that is different from that kiosk where you buy an item today, you sell tomorrow, you make your profit or you make your loss, and you're able to evaluate every day. In this case, you are getting to a business that will require a combination of factors: patience, good management, availability. So how does your current situation as a person favor the kind of business you're getting into? That's a very important factor, and it can lead to you qualifying yourself for the next step of the master plan or disqualifying yourself for the same. Maybe you do it later, or you work on yourself first before you get into the dairy business. So that's about the owner factors. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll now be looking at the next section of the economic factors. So see you after the break.
Performance. Daily.
Welcome back. Now, before the break, we looked at the owner factors in starting a dairy farm, about the attributes of the person beginning. But now we look at the economic factors, and I would like us to look at the economic factors in two ways. First is the internal economic factors that have to do with your preparedness, and two is the external economic factors that have to do with the site or the context where you are starting the dairy farm. Let's begin with the internal factors. That is a question of how prepared are you in terms of the capital? If you could have an idea how much it will cost you, do you have the amount of investment required to put up the right structures, to buy the right equipment, to buy the right stock, and also the working capital to support the business for the period that it will be in the negative cash flow? For daily business, you hardly have it beginning with a positive cash flow from day one. It might have 1, 2, 3 years before it crosses over to the positive cash flow period, where it is running with its own finances or its own liquidity. During that period, the owner has to be prepared to be putting in money, or what we could call the working capital, so that the business growth or the turnaround is not affected by the lack of capital. So how prepared is the investor to support the business within that period? So many businesses have suffered that, where in between, just before the business begins to pay its own cost and run on its own cash flow, the business collapses and the owner is not supplying any more finances to run it. So that's something to watch. How prepared are you? Then 2, we have the external factors. Now the external factors have to do with the price. And that is to ask yourself, is the price that is being offered in this place where I'm starting my farm able to pay back the costs so that I can be able to make a profit? We can say that's a basic business principle, that I incur a cost of X, I sell the product at a value of Y, the difference becomes my gross profit. So if the area where you are starting the farm does not give you the price that is able to offset the cost of production and leaves you with a positive margin, then that's a very important factor to consider. It could be actually a reason for you not to start a dairy farm there. And that way, by looking at it, you have a chance to change the site of your farm and go to a more favorable site. Examples I have seen during my work is people who shift from an upcountry region and they bring it to a peri-urban region, and the whole game changes. They are now in a place where the market is good and they can be able now to put their investment knowing that their cost will be paid back and they'll get a profit. The opposite is, you started a dairy farm, all husbandry practices are good, the management is well done, the cows are looking nice, the owner is eager and enthusiastic, but then the price that is offered at the farm gate or by the cooperative just nearby does not offset the cost of production. They're either equal, or unfortunately, he is spending more than is being rewarded, and you have a negative margin, which is called a loss. So that's the most important thing. So as we sum up this, we have then to ask ourselves, who is the right person? The attribute. Are you resilient? Are you patient to see a business grow? Do you have the right combination of character, temperament, personality to be able to run an enterprise that takes longer to mature, that gives you operational profit, maybe marginal, but then also builds an asset base over time? Are you patient to see through this? And 2, do you have the right capital so that when you go to the planning, you can see the negative period and you can support it through? So the combination of internal preparedness, the right context as far as the selling price is concerned, and the human factors that you fit the business, you can be able to deal with it without falling off along the way because you're discouraged and you didn't see this coming. Those are the most important aspects. And I think that sums up the preparedness before you go to the master plan. In the next episode, we now look at what is this master plan that we are talking about. Now we are ready to go into the business, but what is all this master plan and what are the details around it? So we stop there and meet you in the next episode. Thank you.